Hey everybody, what's happening? Peace and long life. What's going on? This is Tridactyls, the constant companion theory. We're doing our best to play the intermediary between the science and the public, doing our best to decipher what some of these scientific reports are saying to the best of our ability. Admittedly, I am not always the most scientific person. I'm more of a social or cultural guy myself. I always like to make sure that mic is moving, right? So we do have some cool things to talk about today. I have a little slideshow to help me stay on track. I think someone critiqued my last interview that I was all over the place. So I will do my best to do both, to entertain through education, right? That's kind of my goal, is to do that when I can. Can I move myself over there? No, I can't. So I'm using Restream, so it's been pretty useful. It's a paid service, of course. The Restream does allow me to send out the information out to various sites. So hopefully you're watching from YouTube and X and Facebook and maybe even Kick possibly, and Twitch. It looks like TikTok is mad at me once again for the type of stuff I'm posting. So those of you that don't know me, my name is Ed Costas. I am a former archaeologist. That means I didn't just participate in a school dig or something like that. I've actually surveyed sites and chosen sites and actually pulled some artifacts out, including projectile points and pottery. And I was able to do this by working at a local museum and running their education department. So the good news is you are in good hands as far as that goes. There's not a lot of ancient alien guys out there who are using the Nazca mummies. I still see some people posting things like their dolls or their mutilated humans or sewn together animal parts. There is no evidence of that. I mean, 2 years ago, I was satisfied with Cliff Miles' report. He's a paleontologist, and he based his report on a Russian report by a doctor named Galetki. And also, if you have the chance, watch Dr. Jose Zalci Benitez give his report to the Mexican Navy, which I understand he may have faced some career repercussions as far as that goes. So is this my slideshow? It is. How cool is that? So we're going to be talking about how the archaeology, I suggest, predicts the biology. So there's a lot of different artifacts out there that can really be clues to what to look for. So if you know, the petroglyphs of Tridactyls, three-fingered beings, are frequently found with water petroglyphs, serpent petroglyphs, mother goddess imagery. So the serpent definitely has one thinking. It ties into the whole reptilian conspiracy made famous by David Icke, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. So we're heading into definitely very strange waters. I was a skeptic myself back in 2023 before Mr. Benitez showed his report to his Congress. Having that trouble getting to the screen again. So let's see what I have. A very short slideshow. It's really just to keep me on track again. So here's some artifacts. Could very well be. I wonder if we can zoom in on that. That'd be nice, huh? Not so much. Maybe even just full screen to I'm not real happy with how small that is, so I apologize for that part. Get me out of there. But these are called the Gogok Korean artifacts, and we have some more of those to look at, which are much better pictures, right? Much closer. These are strange too because they look like they could be parts of like half a circle. They look almost like gears, don't they? Are those appendages that they're depicting? So these are some complex versions of the Japanese Magatama. And the Japanese Magatama leads us to the Hongshan pig dragons. And it was specifically artifacts like this on the left here, which looked remarkably like our tridactyl faces with a cordiform head, which is really just due to supraorbital arches. And now that we know that they're likely part human, part primate, those are just primate supraorbital arches. I think there's nothing that unusual, to be honest, about those in retrospect. What else might be depicted there? And then to the right, we have something called a dragon man. Sometimes they're put in a sort of fetal or seated position. Whoa, too far. Okay, so I'm just going to stop right there because I actually wanted to show you some actual pig dragons I have here. So let's take a look at these. Luckily, I have them in a treasure box that I can't open. That's an opposite button. Okay. It's really just a cigar box, but you know. Okay, so I do have a few pig dragons here. I don't know how authentic they are. Some of you probably have seen these before. Let's take a look at them again, and hopefully I don't drop them. So this one's got some nice weight to it. How could I tell or not tell if it is authentic or not? I don't know. The grooves on this are kind of shallow, and I feel like I can see maybe some carved lines. So to me, I would have to say I'm kind of skeptical, but at least you get to hold it and get to see a pig dragon. It's a nice prop at the very least. Got a couple more. Maybe they're more authentic. I don't know. Maybe less so. Here's another one. So it was these pig dragons that led me to believe that the ancients knew what the embryonic form. Now, why do they call them pig dragons? Is that because of some look about them? Or does it say something about the DNA? Okay, any more pig dragons? I don't know if I have any more proper pig dragons, but let's see. Let's see. I do have a couple of things that could be construed as such. Again, disclaimer, I don't know the authenticity of these, but some of them are very nice. Someone took, so this is a green screen one. I don't know if I still have my blue screen to show you anything that's green. I kind of took a peek, but I might be able let's see what happens when I just go to. So I could do that. And now you can see it, right? This says green cam, but that doesn't help me. Okay, so we'll have to remember that. Maybe save all the green ones for later on. We're looking for pig dragons. And what might be a good example of a pig dragon? This one has an interesting look about it. Sort of perhaps mimicking a cicada. You know, I think those insects too are also seem to be a big part of the narrative as a symbolic narrative, symbolic metaphorical stand-in is what I'm trying to spit out. So here's another one. Okay, so I think perhaps maybe the cicadas reminded them in behavior of tridactyls going underground. You know, maybe there's a time period involved. Also, maybe just their heads. So that's an interesting one. So you can see they come in all different sizes, and it's hard to tell, which might be authentic or not. I have to be super careful with these because I am actually very klutzy. And so, look at the back end of its tail. Is there something there? No, I guess not. All right. Yeah, some fun ones, huh? Let's see what else there is. So then there's just some other shapes that might not be like a proper pig dragon. And I do have some dragon men that we'll get into. We got this one here. That face is awfully like, as I joke about bong store aliens, right? If your artifact looks like a bong store alien, then I don't know. Maybe it's not real, but this is pretty cool. I like that it's serpentine. I do like that crazy alien head. Here's another one with like a bent triangular head, which reminds me of the letter B, the Phoenician letter B, which I suggest is a serpentine shape. That's part of that therianthropic theory. Okay, we're just going through some more of these cool little Hongshang artifacts. This one here looks like it could be a axolotl sort of front limb metamorphosis. All right, you guys bored with this yet? Because we're about to move on. This is like, I sort of drag you in here. So I figured this part might be the most boring to people. I think most people like the science. And the more science that you get, they like it. So let's wrap it up. I do want to let's look at a couple more dragon men. Here's one again. Is this authentic? Oh, and you can't see. Okay, let's do the green cam. Let's get all the green guys out of the way. All right. Let's get all the green guys out of the way. Okay. Well, Dragon Man. And I'm not going to get into too many more. I really like this one a lot. And this one almost feels like it could be authentic. It seems like a nice piece of stone. It's definitely strange looking. Quite the conical head. I don't think this artist was maybe a first-hand witness, but perhaps they knew what these things actually looked like enough to maybe it was passed down from generation to generation. There's more. There is definitely more, but I want to stay on track. So Hongshang pig dragon. So we're talking about 2900 BC to 4700 BC, which is right smack in the middle of that, is around the time of the Syrian eye idols. And even though the Dogu artifacts and the Magatama, there's a large range of dates, I'm wondering if those artifacts are somewhere closer to that range. So let's move on, shall we? Yes. Yes, we shall. We're going to share that screen again. Someone trying to call during the show. How rude, right? So, speaking of artifacts, this is something that's been around for some time, and we've dismissed it, but I think it's time to relook at this so-called genetic disc from Colombia, specifically because not only does it show serpentine shapes, like right here. Let you draw on the screen. That would be fun. Oh, we got some chats coming in. Damn, sorry I'm late. 11 minutes. So you're just joining. What'd you miss? You missed the Hongshang pig dragon, which you can watch in video later, I suppose. But this disc here, this has been around before the Tridactyls. And I think we probably dismissed it because we're like, hey, it looks like bong store aliens. silly little aliens. But I thought it's definitely time to take another look at this, considering two that they appear to show like front limb first metamorphosis right here in this piece, right? Maybe others, and a serpentine form here. So, I mean, if this thing appeared after the Tridactyls, I would be just so skeptical, right? So, oh, and this form here looks like something we've seen in the eggs, which we're going to get to. So let's talk about the eggs. So one of the topics tonight is definitely the eggs and the larval forms. Whoopsie, hey. Whoa. I'm all over the place. I'm very clicky. So with the eggs, it seems as though that the eggs come in threes. The egg bearers tend to have implants. They tend to have that metal implant where breast would be. Excellent. Thank you for sharing, Skywatch. Skywatch is super friendly and has been super kind to share, because I am like screaming into the void with this stuff. There are other people talking about it. I try to do my best to report every day and every week on the show, because can I focus my face in any better? My arm is not long enough to focus my face, I think. There we go. That's something, right? Okay. Yeah. So what are those metal implants for? I've suggested, are they for magnetic breasts? I don't know. Do they have to feed primates? They are part primate. They are 3%, they say, human, and very chimp-like in their supraorbital arches. And their arm length is longer too, so that leads one to believe they could probably run like a chimp too on all fours. So here's some shots you may not have seen before. That is the aortic heart. I don't know if that was discovered by Galecki or Miles or someone else, but that's that tubular heart that is sort of a sign of a invertebrate. It's sort of invertebrate trait. It's also a neotenic trait, so a young trait for young amphibians. And one of our fetuses from Artemis. Yeah, connecting all the dots. I am. I'm doing my best, and it's sort of unfolding, right? Because it started with the bodies that were found in Peru, brought to Mexico. I associated them with Canada and the Caribbean, which led me to the Maori in New Zealand and the eye idols in Syria and the Permian Bronze Age animal pieces in Europe, the Dogu, of course, in Japan, and the petroglyphs were all related to serpent imagery and the mother goddess. Well, that brought me to one place, and that was Asia. Asia, so I could see the mother goddess cult, which seems to be stemming from there. Got someone saying not. Familiar with this guy. What credentials does he have to speak on this? Here we go. That's awesome. I think this is one of my first real big skeptics, from Joe Sapo. Smash this like so. Let's see. I don't know what he's saying not to. He's saying not to somebody's other comment, I guess. I'm not sure. So what credentials does he have to speak on this? So that's great. So for one, I am a former archaeologist, so that does involve me personally having a degree in anthropology and social sciences, and the certificate in ethnic studies just demonstrates a dedication, if you will. And as a former museum employee, I've done several digs, but I don't even know if that is as important as the fact that I recognized the Nazca mummies from petroglyphs in Canada and the Caribbean. So anybody could have taken that class, and anybody could have seen the news report. And And anyone could have suggested the same thing. So at that point, you have to ask yourself a couple questions, I guess, is do the petroglyphs in Canada and the Caribbean actually depict these beings? And that's where it could get subjective. But 2 years down the road, I've connected them to universal symbolism of these beings. So we are now going to move into, we've got a fetus on screen. I thought we would do a little bit of live egg hunting. So we're going to switch to our medical scans here. If I can remind the mouse who's in charge. What the heck? Okay, great. And I think I'd like to go to a smaller screen for that, wouldn't I? Okay, let's see here. So yeah, so the other thing I guess that somewhat makes me of interest besides that is that yes, here I am, a former archaeologist who does believe that these bodies are authentic, but I'm still basing it on a paleontologist, a forensic anthropologist, and another medical doctor, and probably a host of other people I'm neglecting. But those gentlemen, they all are, already set a precedent. So all I have to do is sort of come up behind them. So what we're looking at here is the eggs of Louisa. And we can fool around with a little bit to see if anything really pops out. This looks like we're zoomed in a little bit too much. Oh, I got to remember what screen I'm working from here. I don't really have my last monitor as excellent as I want it. Okay. You can see on some of the screens, it'll show us where we are in space in relation to the other eggs. So very difficult for myself to see anything, but I do like to think that the dark eyes are in fact a clue, because that does seem to be something that will happen in imagery here. And then we can sort of, again, I'm not a medical person, so I'll say that. I am not a medical person, so we could be full of, well, I don't, just making up stuff at this part. But what we're trying to do is see if we can find some tridactyl youth, juveniles in the eggs while we're here. And you know, we can do, there's nothing wrong with putting a little bit of music on, maybe a different style. Can't really pan, okay. We could zoom though. Whoa. Possibly something down there. So what we're suggesting, again, those of you that came late, is that the Hongshang artifacts actually demonstrated that these things were known to the ancients. Let's get a move in there. Yeah, these eggs are interesting, aren't they? So yeah, there's the 3 eggs again. So the other interesting thing is they're suggested that's asynchronous development, meaning they're not all developing at the same time. So again, are those dark spots eyes? And again, this is the Tridactyl Louisa. It's her pelvis region there. We're looking at the 3 eggs. And we're going to go ahead and try to zoom. Zoom in on this one. Nope, that's not a zoomer inner either, huh? There we go. Yeah, are all those little dark eyes like a sort of, like we're seeing like a shrimp, if you will? No, is this the top of the head? Anyway, let's get out of that. One more time, let's go back into this section here before we give up on any sort of super duper finds while we're here. There we go. I forget the controls because I get them confused with the other site. In fact, let's do that. So I suggest, let me get out of here. I suggest when you guys sign on, if you want to do your due diligence, you should always check with thealienproject.com. The-alienproject.com. So let's go ahead and go there so we can refamiliarize ourselves with what happens on that site. Because there's a lot of cool stuff there. I mean, we could spend all day just airing, their site. But I don't want to be just running content that's their site, right? So you can go to the discoveries, choose one of the, let's check out our comments lately. I haven't seen any new comments. Here we go. Do a Reddit account I can follow, an X account. In fact, the eggs alone are, it's crazy. Yeah. And how does this happen? Not all developing at the same time. That's a great question. So these creatures probably go through a parthenogenesis that is based on precedents like a Komodo dragon here on Earth. They're likely self-impregnating creatures. So, which is why that hermaphroditic, they're getting X and Y's on Maria, I suggest. I think that's, I haven't done a lot of research into the commonality of those eggs. That's a great question, but I'm going to take a stab at it. I'm guessing pretty unusual. I'm still wondering too, are these creatures, are they sort of creating their own eggs around themselves? There is a myth related to that. So that's interesting. Does perhaps the mother's excretes an interior milk substance and perhaps they use that? I don't know. I'm totally speculating on that. So we do have Alien Project up, so please go there. These guys are the originals. It seems crazy. Their name is crazy, right? But look at all of this science. And we're going to go ahead this way. This will segue into our pineal gland. We're going to go and look at Alberto. Just so you know exactly what I do, you can do the same thing. So we'll wait for that to load. Should be loading, I think. Is that Alberto? Okay, cool. So it's great how they've done it. Each specimen's going to have their own page, or depending on what scans they've gone through, of course. It gives you all the measurements. So it's like you don't even have to trust me. I'm just playing middleman. My goal is to demonstrate the cultural connections, such as that Hongshan pig dragon. So let's take a look at this. I think this was the piece I was using. Courtesy of Instituto Incari, Jungle Doc Productions. And no, this is not the piece I was using. Let's go back to this one. Okay, so I'd already suspected, as many of you know, that the Tridactyls were going to have a pineal gland. This is based on human cosmology. And what I mean by that is we all know the third eye mythology. We all know the pineal gland that it's associated with. But it's interesting, in mythology, the pineal gland is frequently depicted, the ajna, right here, right? Well, our pineal gland is on the interior of our brain. So let's go ahead and watch this. And then right about here, it's when I saw it. Right here, we have what's called a parietal foramen. So a foramen is like a shaft, if I'm not mistaken. Please correct me. Some people get so angry when you get something wrong. It's just like, just tell me I'm wrong and I'll fix it, okay? Not a big deal. We can move on. Everybody learns. Everyone's happy. So I knew this was going to be there. So when I saw the scan, it was where I thought it was going to be anyway, which is the concave pneumatic area of the skull. I don't even have a tridactyl head on me. Here, hold on one second. I know some of these guys are mushy. This guy, yeah, this is one of my not one of my better creations here, I have to admit. Right here. Right there. Okay? It's exactly where it is. So we've got something where we said it would be. Kind of like the time in archaeology, mind you, where we were deciding where to dig, and I saw Tree Island, and I said, let's dig on the Tree Island, and that's where I pulled the projectile point. Right? It's the same thing, guys. Haters gonna hate. Ignore it. Yeah, they drive me crazy. They're like willful skeptics. Like, these people still look at this and suggest this is a doll. What? Oy vey. So, what are we talking about? We're talking about the pineal gland. And what was interesting is that there appears to be two structures. And I actually sent this to a vertebrate paleontologist. I didn't tell him what I was sending him, mind you. I just wanted him to identify the structure. My impression is that it is a mammal and possibly a primate. Well, he's about 3% right. At least both lateral eyes seem to be pointing forward. If so, then it would be very unusual because no mammal retains two organs in the epiphyseal complex, which is the pineal or pineal complex. So, just below the kappa, exactly. And why do we call it the kappa? We call it the kappa because of the myth of the Japanese creature that retains water in its head, and it's also the Proto-Indo-European word for both cup and head. I mean, you can't make this up. Talk about tying it all together. You see what I did there? I brought it right back to Indo-European etymology, kappa. That's right. Cap and head have the same meaning. Why is that? That means in someone's ancient head at one time, no pun intended, a head held water or liquid. Let's just look at another post here, because that way I can show you things all together, right? So I did send him that overhead shot, and I just think I'm sorry if you guys have heard these stories before, but I just think it is so important that we really continue to get this part of the story out there. Sure, I get it. My my tales of tridactyl faces at the Temple of Hathor might be a little hard for people to buy. I understand that. That's one of the reasons I got into the science. I got into the science because I knew if anyone was ever going to believe the crazy archaeological stories, they needed to understand. That's right. They needed to understand that biology of these beings. So we're just going over this again. I think it's important. And I think it's also good to know that, again, in the mythology speaks of the Nagamandi, a serpent stone, a cobra pearl said to lie in the head of Nagas. But it turns out that serpents, snakes that is, don't really have this gland. So as I've suggested before, these beings, these tridactyls, these Nazca mummies, are the Naga. I prefer to call them the Naga tridactyls. Can we call them the dragon, like the dragon men? Yes. In fact, you know, I spoke to some people from Southeast Asia, and when you mention that, they say they're the same thing. To them, it's the same thing. The women who extend their necks are doing so to look like the serpent mother. They're extending their necks. So we have neck extending cultures. We have head extending cultures. And so that's where we're at with that. What else can we say about the pineal gland and the Nagamandi? Oh, here's the Magatamas, I guess I wanted to show you guys. Let's go back a step, shall we? We're going to share... going back for those that joined us. So I suggest that these Magatama represent a embryonic stage of the beings. Note too, many are green jadestone, just like some of the pieces I showed you tonight. I believe the green is also inspired by the Tridactyls. If you saw one of the heads after it was cleaned off, and I always have trouble finding that picture also. You guys might find it before me. One of those heads is very green when it is cleaned off. So I suggest green jadestone is... So what we can say, so great. So crocodiles don't have a pineal gland, and this is a good thing to demonstrate something else about the Tridactyls. But the Tridactyls and the crocodiles both have gastralia. Both have gastralia. They have floating stomach bones. Oh, interesting. The dogs can get the SADs because of the pineal gland is what I think you're suggesting there. So we're talking about the pineal gland. We talked about two examples tonight, how the archaeology predicts the morphology. So let's look at a couple more pictures of tridactyl embryos, because we want to compare them to what we've seen. And yeah, try to have it all set up for us, but you know, sometimes I get a little ahead of myself. There's so much to cover sometimes that... Yep. All right, so real quick, let's see if we can find... Let's just go to Louisa. We've got the thing open. Let's do it. How fun will that be? Let's just look at Louisa, guys, shall we? So we're in Louisa right now, but I wanted to look at her strange... This way it looks like they were using this for the metal. So the way the eggs show up on the metal is interesting, and the same reflection as it's reflect. Yeah, don't ask me the technical stuff, guys. But we can zoom in on these eggs, and even just using this scan, we can zoom around the eggs and look right there. There you can see what appears to be one of the serpentine forms. Trying to zoom in without losing where we're at. There it is. You see that? And then the other thing I see, we got so Skywatch is adding some stuff about birds, which is just great. Every comment just helps me sort of think of something else. The Tridactyls might share something with birds besides that interclavicle, that sort of furcula wishbone. They may also share a singular monocondyle connecting the skull to the spinal cord. That's a little bit of, I don't want to say speculation, but a guess. Speculation sounds like you don't really know what you're talking about at all. What do you guys think of that? Does that look like a serpentine being looking back at you on the... are we looking down at it? Is it looking at us? Almost cordiform in shape there. Mm-hmm. All right. Cool. So we got some chat people out there. Any questions tonight? Comments? Otherwise, we're going to start talking about a Tridactyl head giveaway. And I believe that Sky took part in my online survey. He made a comment, and Sky is here today with us. So Sky, you're going to have to choose, I think, 2 numbers for a chance to win our that's not the right screen. Sharing our number screen here. You can see the couple people that have either sent one, 2, or 1. All right. Yeah. So that serpentine form means, you know, I don't know how many people expected to see little baby goblins in the eggs. Is that from the gear? Is that from like the front door cam thing? No, 69's already been dished out. It was used and won. Okay, we got 16. All right. Skywatch 16. Anybody else watching who's took part in the survey? Don't let me neglect you. All right. Yeah, I saw that. What the heck is it? Is that like the Tridactyl in Iron Man armor? What is going on? Maybe we should look at that again. I don't know. I kind of see that stuff, the flying robot things, that I'm like, whoa. What is the breastplate made of? That's a good one. I think the majority of the breastplates, well, there's, you know what? There's different combinations. Some of it is just straight up the metal from the local area. So they call it it's like a electrum, sort of. It's a mixture of metals. And so copper. Now, there is some with iron in it, so that could indicate somewhere else. Across in Europe, the copper could indicate the Great Lakes. But definitely we have to look at the metallurgy reports to get the percentages on that. I think we covered that a couple of weeks ago, actually. We have Carl Shine saying, wow, wow, wow. What are you saying, wow, 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 about, Carl? Moving on. Let's see. I want to give some people some more chances. So let's see. If you're out there, Joe Sapo, if you're listening, Elizabeth Herrera, if you're out there, Gears fans, why don't you give us a number for today? I'm giving away one of these Tridactyl heads. Not this one. I make these freaky things. And this one came out awful. I'm so embarrassed. What I've been doing with the 2 of the bad ones I made, I just painted gold and then I buried in the front yard. Not like completely buried, but I just kind of tucked them away. And maybe somebody will steal them. All right, Elizabeth is here. She's going to go for a 51 for her chance to win. Replica Josephina's skull, which I will make fresh in the morning. So you'll have a fresh head. 50 for Gears. And Carl, you can take part in this if you like. Last call for... You can see how these numbers are going to fill up, and pretty soon there's going to be a lot of winners. So I'll have to start making the heads 2 at a time, I think. All right, while we wait for someone to come out and play, I'm going to go ahead and open our Roll20 so we can look at our D100 dice and our pretty face of Miss Josephina. You hear the neighbor's dogs barking. Okay, let's go back to our show. So we covered a few things tonight, didn't we? We covered the a little bit about the pineal gland. Now remember, with the Tridactyls, what's interesting is, unlike the Tuatara, which just has the singular parietal eye, the Tridactyls seem to have two organs connected together. So it's super unique, super interesting. And again, it's predicting what was the mythology. So yeah, anyone else? Carl, you want to pick a number? Or Joe? Or who else is out there? I think that's it. All right, here we go. Last call. We're going to be rolling to see who wins a Josephina skull. I hope it's somebody. Sometimes it's nobody. Oop. Wolf, dang, bro. They've always been here. Not aliens, just the progenitors of the human race who survived. Yep, which was a destruction world. Yep. Yeah, it turns out likely, you know, I was a super skeptic of the Bible as well. And it turns out that the Bible got a lot of things right. If you follow my theory on the morphine, the NG morphine, found in both the word for eel and angels and naga, it sort of paints a damning connection of who these things are. Wolf, thanks for joining. You're welcome to throw in a random number for a chance to win a Josephina skull. Actually, it's not that random, is it? You kind of have to pick one of the numbers that are already here. Yep, they're also the watchers. Very good. Carl's joining in with the 87. Carl Shine. Wolf, if you're there, you can get a chance to win a replica Josephina model head. I say replica. I don't think it's the exact same size, but it's pretty freaking close. We follow the measurements, but still, I don't know. I think things happen. Okay, last call, Wolf. Going once. Going twice. Going 3 times. We are rolling. You can always try again next week, right? Here we go, guys. The fact that there's a pineal gland at all is amazing. Exactly. You tie that in now that I guessed it would be there because of myth, and then it ends up being what appears to be 2 pieces, then it's just insane. You're absolutely right, Skywatch. Here we go. Rolling for it now. I'm getting in there. No stopping me. D100. Can't see their number. Go figure. That looks like 77. 77. Who was 77? Citizen. I think that's Citizen UFO, I think. I'm not positive who that is, actually. That's a great number, though. 77 is, that's the year that Star Wars came out, right? So that's kind of a favorite of mine. I'm going to highlight that with something, I think. Maybe not. Maybe. There we go. All right. Very cool. Let me turn this off now. Wow. Well, we did it. I can't believe it. We pretty much did another show. I like to do a minimum of 30 minutes, headed towards an hour. That way it's a nice, 45 right in the middle. Leaves us plenty of time for you guys to add your comments, for us to roll the dice. So, yes, it has been a series of legitimate connections. This is not just, I think people think I just got off a bar stool and be like, wouldn't it be wild if the Nagas were mother goddesses? Yes, man. Thank you for watching. Thanks for sharing and getting the word out. I think it's super important. We'll probably keep talking about this, and we'll keep trying to find out more information about pineal glands, and we'll still look at the giant tridactyl heads at the Temple of Hathor. Yes, Why everyone's not just going absolutely nuts for that? I think because it's an optical illusion, so it's hard to see. Anyway, thanks again for coming. We do have a winner, it looks like. We'll try again, see who our winner is next week. Live long and prosper.